In the rugged landscapes of Arizona, where ancient Apache traditions meet modern ambitions, a story of love, betrayal, and ultimate sacrifice unfolds. KAEL YAZZIE, a 30-year-old Apache man with the build of a warrior and the heart of a protector, works as a wilderness guide while preserving his people's sacred traditions. His muscular frame, carved by years of outdoor work and traditional Apache training, carries both strength and gentleness. SOPHIA CHEN, a 25-year-old ambitious documentary filmmaker from Los Angeles, arrives in Arizona to create a film about disappearing Native American traditions. Beautiful, driven, and used to getting what she wants, she sees KAEL's story as her ticket to fame and critical acclaim. What begins as a professional relationship evolves into something deeper when Sophia promises KAEL everything: her love, her commitment to telling his people's story authentically, and a future together. But as her career ambitions clash with her promises, KAEL discovers that some victories come at the cost of one's soul, and sometimes the greatest prize taken is not what was promised, but what was never meant to be given. This is a story about the collision of two worlds, the price of ambition and the ultimate question: when someone promises you everything, what are you willing to take? The camera sweeps across the majestic Arizona desert as the first rays of sunlight pierce through ancient red rock formations. The silence is profound, almost spiritual. Suddenly, the sound of rhythmic drumming echoes across the landscape. A figure emerges from the morning mist. KAEL YAZZIE, 30, his powerful, muscular silhouette moving with the grace of someone who belongs to this land. His long black hair flows as he performs a traditional Apache sunrise ceremony, his movements fluid and reverent. Scars on his arms tell stories of a life lived authentically, while his strong hands hold sage that sends smoke spiraling into the dawn sky. The camera captures his face, weathered by sun and wind, eyes closed in deep concentration, lips moving in ancient prayers. This is a man connected to something eternal. KAEL speaks in Apache, his voice deep and resonant. Great Spirit, guide me through another day. Keep my people's wisdom alive in my heart. As the ceremony concludes, he opens his eyes, dark brown, filled with both ancient wisdom and modern pain. He's been carrying something heavy, a burden that shows in the slight tension around his eyes. This morning ritual is his anchor, the one thing keeping him grounded in a world that seems to be forgetting his people's ways. The sound of a car engine breaking the morning silence makes him turn. A black Range Rover navigates the dusty mountain road, clearly out of place in this sacred landscape. KAEL watches with a mixture of curiosity and annoyance as the vehicle parks near the ceremonial grounds. From behind the wheel steps SOPHIA CHEN, 25, stunning in an effortless way that speaks of someone accustomed to being the most beautiful person in any room. Her designer hiking boots and perfectly fitted outdoor gear scream expensive, but there's something genuine in her eyes as she looks around at the breathtaking scenery. She carries a professional camera and several cases of equipment, moving with the confident stride of someone who's used to getting exactly what she wants. Her long black hair catches the morning light, and when she spots KAEL, she freezes. For a moment, neither move. There's something electric in the air between them, a recognition that goes beyond the physical, though the attraction is undeniable. "I'm sorry," Sophia calls out, her voice carrying a slight breathlessness that could be from the altitude or from seeing KAEL. "I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm looking for KAEL YAZZIE. I was told he guides people through Apache territory." She approaches slowly, respectfully, but her eyes never leave his face. There's something about the way the morning light plays across his muscular frame, the spiritual intensity still radiating from him, that makes her feel like she's witnessing something sacred. KAEL studies her for a long moment, taking in everything: the expensive equipment, the way she moves with purpose, the genuine respect in her voice despite her obvious wealth. "You found him," he says simply, his voice carrying the depth of mountains and the warmth of desert winds. "But these are sacred grounds. Ceremonies aren't tourist attractions. There's no hostility in his words, just a quiet firmness that suggests he's had this conversation before. Sophia steps closer, and now they're close enough that the height difference is apparent. Even with her 5'7" frame, she has to look up to meet his eyes. "I'm not a tourist," she says, pulling out a business card. "I'm Sophia Chen, documentary filmmaker. I've spent the last year researching Apache history and traditions. I want to tell your story, the real story, not the romanticized version Hollywood sells." Something shifts in KAEL's expressions. He's heard promises before, from journalists, from filmmakers, from academics who came to study his people like specimens in a lab. Most of them left with sensationalized stories that bore little resemblance to the truth. But there's something different about Sophia, something in the way she says your story, that suggests she understands the weight of what she's asking. "And what makes you think our story is yours to tell?" he asks, stepping close. Now they're almost touching, and the tension between them is palpable. Sophia can smell the sage smoke still clinging to his clothes, can see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. Her heart races, but she forces herself to focus on her mission. "Because stories like yours are disappearing," she says, her voice gaining strength and passion. "Every day, another elder passes away, another tradition dies out, another piece of history gets lost forever. I have the platform, the resources, the connections to make sure your people's voices are heard by millions. I can promise you that." The word promise hangs in the air between them, loaded with meaning that neither fully understands yet. KAEL is quiet for a long moment, watching her face. There's sincerity there, but also ambition. He's learned to recognize the difference between people who want to help and people who want to use his culture for their own gain. With Sophia, it's complicated. He can see both motivations warring in her eyes. "Promises are sacred things in Apache culture," he says finally. "When you give your word, you give a piece of your soul. Are you prepared for that?" The question catches Sophia off guard. She's made hundreds of promises in her career, to investors, to subjects, to her own ambition. But something about the way KAEL asks makes this feel different, more significant. "I am," she says, and she means it, even though she doesn't yet understand what she's committing to. "I promise you that I'll tell your story with the respect and authenticity it deserves. I promise I'll give you creative control, that nothing goes out without your approval. I promise," she pauses, looking into his eyes, feeling something shift between them that has nothing to do with documentaries or careers. "I promise I'll never betray your trust." KAEL nods slowly, but there's something almost sad in his acceptance. "Then you can follow me," he says, turning toward a trail that leads deeper into Apache territory. "But understand, where we're going, there are no shortcuts. The path requires everything you have to give. Are you ready for that?" As they begin walking, neither realizes they've just set in motion a chain of events that will test every promise made, every word spoken, and ultimately demand the highest price either has ever been asked to pay. The morning sun climbs higher, casting their shadows long across the sacred ground, two figures walking toward a destiny that will transform them both in ways they never imagined possible. 3 weeks into filming, the professional boundaries between KAEL and Sophia have begun to blur in ways that surprise them both. What started as a documentary project has evolved into something deeper, more personal, more dangerous. Sophia finds herself staying later each evening, asking questions that have nothing to do with her film, and everything to do with understanding the man who speaks about his ancestors with such reverence, whose hands are gentle when he shows her how to weave traditional patterns, whose eyes hold depths she's never encountered in her fast-paced Los Angeles world. KAEL, for his part, has never met anyone like Sophia. She listens when he speaks about the old ways, truly listens, not just waiting for her turn to talk or for the perfect soundbite. When he tells her about the responsibility he feels to preserve his people's traditions, she nods with understanding that seems to come from her own struggles with identity and belonging. Her questions are intelligent, respectful, and often catch him off guard with their insight. More than once he's found himself sharing stories he's never told anyone, opening parts of his heart he thought he'd sealed away after too many disappointments. The desert evening finds them sitting by a campfire outside his modest cabin, the day's filming equipment packed away, the professional pretense dropped. Sophia wears one of his flannel shirts over her tank top, the fabric hanging loose on her smaller frame, and something about seeing her in his clothes makes KAEL's chest tighten with an emotion he's not ready to name. She's been quiet for the past hour, staring into the flames with an expression he can't read. "You're troubled," he observes, his voice cutting through the crackling of burning wood. "Tell me what's weighing on your heart." It's such a simple question, asked with such genuine care, that Sophia feels something crack open inside her chest. In her world, people ask how you're doing as a formality, not because they actually want to know. But KAEL asks like he's prepared to sit with whatever answer she gives him, no matter how complicated or messy. Sophia takes a shaky breath, surprised by her own vulnerability. "I got a call from my producer today," she says, her voice smaller than usual. "The network executive saw some of the preliminary footage. They love it, but they want me to adjust the narrative, make it more dramatic, more conflict-driven. They want me to focus on the struggles, the poverty, the problems in the community, rather than the beauty and wisdom of the traditions." She looks up at him, and her eyes are bright with unshed tears. "They want me to exploit your pain for entertainment value." KAEL's jaw tightens, but his anger isn't directed at her. He's seen this before, heard these same stories from other filmmakers who came with good intentions only to be pressured by networks and studios to sensationalize Native American experiences. "And what did you tell them?" he asks, though something in his voice suggests he already knows the answer, and it's not what he's hoping to hear. "I told them I'd think about it," Sophia admits, the words tasting like ash in her mouth. "I told them I needed more time to consider their suggestion." She can't look at him as she says it, can't bear to see the disappointment she knows will be in his eyes. "KAEL, you have to understand, this is my career we're talking about. This documentary could open doors for me that have been closed my entire life. I could finally prove myself as a serious filmmaker, not just another pretty face trying to make it in Hollywood." The silence stretches between them, filled with the weight of what she's not saying and what he's trying not to feel. When KAEL finally speaks, his voice is carefully controlled, but she can hear the hurt underneath. "I thought you were different," he says quietly. "I thought when you promised to tell our story authentically, you meant it. I thought when you said you'd never betray my trust, those words meant something to you. They do mean something to me." Sophia's voice breaks as she turns to face him fully. "That's why I'm torn apart about this. That's why I've been sitting here all evening, trying to figure out how to keep my promise to you while also not destroying my career. Don't you think I want to tell your story the way it deserves to be told? Don't you think I've fallen in love with this place, with your culture?" She stops herself before she says the words that are screaming in her heart, but they hang in the air between them anyway. KAEL moves closer to her on the log they're sharing, close enough that she can see the firelight reflecting in his dark eyes, close enough that she can feel the warmth radiating from his strong body. "With what, Sophia?" he asks, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "What were you going to say?" Her breath catches in her throat. She's always been articulate, always had the right words, but sitting here with this man who makes her feel things she's never felt before, she finds herself speechless. Instead of answering with words, she reaches up and touches his face, her fingers tracing the strong line of his jaw, the high cheekbones that speak of generations of proud Apache heritage. "I've fallen in love with you," she whispers, the admission torn somewhere deep inside her chest. "I didn't plan it, I didn't want it, but I can't deny it anymore. When I look at you, when I listen to you speak about your ancestors, when you show me the sacred places of your people, I feel like I'm seeing the world for the first time. You've changed everything for me, KAEL. Everything." For a moment, time seems suspended, The fire crackles, an owl calls in the distance, and two hearts beat in a rhythm that seems to echo the ancient drums of his people. Then KAEL's hand covers hers where it rests against his cheek, and he turns his head to press a kiss into her palm, a gesture so tender it nearly breaks her. "And I've fallen in love with you," he admits, his voice rough with emotion. "Against my better judgment, against everything my experience has taught me about people from your world, I've fallen completely and utterly in love with you. But love without trust is like a river without banks. It destroys everything in its path. Can I trust you, Sophia? When the pressure gets too great, when choosing me means sacrificing what you want most, will you still be here?" Sophia feels tears streaming down her cheeks now, tears she didn't even realize had started falling. "I promise you," she says, her voice fierce with determination. "I will not let them turn your story into something it's not. I promise you that I will find a way to keep my integrity and my career. I promise you that I won't let you down." She moves even closer to him, their faces now inches apart. "And I promise you that what I feel for you is real, more real than anything I've ever felt in my life." KAEL searches her eyes in the firelight, looking for any sign of doubt or deception. What he sees there is love, genuine and deep, mixed with a determination that makes him want to believe her promises. "Then I have something to show you," he says, standing and extending his hand to her. "Something I've never shown to anyone outside my family. If we're going to do this, if we're going to trust each other with our hearts, then you need to understand what you're promising to protect." Sophia takes his hand, letting him pull her to her feet, and follows him into the darkness beyond the fire's glow. They walk for 20 minutes, through paths only he knows, his sure footing guiding them through terrain that would be treacherous for someone unfamiliar with the desert night. Finally, they reach a hidden canyon, where ancient Apache petroglyphs cover the rock walls, images that tell the story of his people going back hundreds of years. "This is the heart of who we are," KAEL says, his voice reverent as he lights a traditional torch to illuminate the ancient artwork. "These stories, these images, they're not just history, they're our roadmap for how to live, how to love, how to honor the sacred in everyday life. When outsiders come to document our culture, this is what they miss. They see the ceremonies, the regalia, the obvious symbols, but they don't understand that everything is connected to this deeper story." Sophia moves along the wall, her fingers hovering just above the ancient images, afraid to touch them but desperate to absorb their meaning. "It's incredible," she breathes. "The complexity, the layered meanings. Carl, this changes everything about how the documentary should be structured. If I can find a way to weave this deeper narrative through the film, to show how the modern struggles and triumphs of your people are connected to these ancient stories." She turns to him, her eyes bright with excitement and inspiration. "This could be something truly revolutionary, something that changes how people understand Native American culture." But even as she speaks, she can see the conflict in his eyes. "You want to film here," he says, "and it's not a question. You want to bring your cameras to the most sacred place my people have." The weight of what she's asking hits her like a physical blow. She's so caught up in the possibilities for her film that she almost missed the magnitude of what he's sharing with her. "I wouldn't ask that of you," she says, though they both know she was about to. "This place is too sacred, too precious. I could never," but her voice trails off because they both know how much it would mean for her documentary, how much it would elevate her film from good to groundbreaking. KAEL steps closer to her, close enough that she has to tilt her head back to look into his eyes. "If I said yes," he says slowly, "if I trusted you with the most sacred things my people possess, what would you promise me in return?" Sophia's heart pounds as she realizes this is a test, maybe the most important test of her life. "I would promise you everything," she whispers. "I would promise you that I'll protect these sacred places with my life. I would promise you that I'll never use what you show me to exploit or sensationalize. I would promise you my heart, my loyalty, my complete devotion to telling your story the right way." She reaches up and places both hands on his chest, feeling his heart beating strong and fast beneath her palms. "I would promise you forever, if you'll have me." The kiss that follows is soft at first, tentative, but it quickly deepens as 3 weeks of suppressed longing and growing love pour out between them. When they finally break apart, both are breathing hard, and the air between them vibrates with promises made and unmade, with the weight of what they're committing to. "Forever is a long time," KAEL says against her lips, his hands tangled in her long hair. "Are you sure you're ready for what that means in Apache culture? Are you sure you're ready to choose this life, this love over everything else you thought you wanted?" Sophia looks into his eyes, seeing her future reflected there. Not the glamorous Hollywood success she'd always imagined, but something deeper, more meaningful, more real than anything she'd ever dreamed possible. "I'm sure," she says, and in this moment, surrounded by the stories of his ancestors, held in the arms of the man who's captured her heart completely, she means it with every fiber of her being. "I promise you everything, KAEL, everything I am, everything I have, everything I'll ever be." As they make love for the first time beneath the ancient stars, surrounded by the sacred stories of his people, neither can imagine how thoroughly those promises will be tested, or how much they'll both be asked to sacrifice in the name of love. But for now, in this perfect moment, all that matters is the weight of their words and the fierce tenderness of their connection. Two hearts beating as one beneath the vast Apache sky. 2 months have passed since that night at the sacred petroglyphs, and Sophia's world has become completely intertwined with KAEL's. She's moved out of her hotel and into his cabin, their morning routines flowing together like they've been doing this for years. She wakes to the sound of his prayers at dawn, watches him tend to his small garden of traditional Apache plants, learns to prepare meals the way his grandmother taught him. In the evenings, she sits beside him as he works on traditional crafts, her camera forgotten as she simply enjoys being in his presence. Her documentary has evolved into something beautiful and authentic, exactly what she promised it would be. The footage she's captured shows the Apache community as they truly are, resilient, wise, connected to something larger than themselves. KAEL's trust has opened doors she never could have accessed alone. Elders, who were initially suspicious of her, now invite her into their homes, share stories that haven't been told to outsiders in generations. Children who once hid behind their mothers now wave to her enthusiastically and teach her words in their ancestral language. But success has a way of complicating even the purest intentions, and Sophia's success is drawing attention she never anticipated. Her phone rings constantly now, calls from producers, distributors, film festival directors, who've gotten word of her work. The preliminary footage she's been required to send to her network has generated buzz throughout the industry. Everyone wants to be associated with what they're calling the most authentic Native American documentary ever made. This morning, as KAEL leads a group of tribal youth through traditional hunting techniques, Sophia's phone buzzes with yet another call. She's learned to ignore them during sacred or educational moments, but the caller ID makes her stomach clench with anxiety. Marcus Weinstein, network president. This isn't a call she can ignore, not if she wants to keep her funding, not if she wants her film to ever see the light of day. "I need to take this," she tells KAEL quietly, squeezing his hand before stepping away from the group. He nods, understanding, but she can see the slight tightening around his eyes that appears whenever her Hollywood world intrudes on their Apache one. She's been getting more calls lately, and each one seems to pull her further away from him, even when she's standing right beside him. "Sophia, my brilliant documentarian." Marcus's voice booms through the phone with the kind of artificial enthusiasm that makes her skin crawl. "I've been trying to reach you for days. We need to talk, urgently. The footage you've sent is incredible, absolutely incredible, but we have some concerns about the direction you're taking." Sophia walks further from the group, not wanting KAEL to overhear what she knows is coming. "What kind of concerns, Marcus?" she asks, though part of her already knows. She's been dreading this conversation for weeks. "Well, it's beautiful work, don't get me wrong. very artistic, very respectful, but we're missing the human drama, the conflict that makes people want to keep watching. We need more struggle, more hardship. We need to see the problems in the community, the alcoholism, the poverty, the family dysfunction. That's what resonates with audiences. That's what wins awards. Marcus's voice takes on the tone of someone explaining something obvious to a child. We also need a cleaner narrative arc. Right now it's too scattered, too anthropological. We need a central figure to follow, someone whose personal story can carry the emotional weight of the film. Sophia closes her eyes, feeling the familiar tension headache building behind her temples. Marcus, the story I'm telling is authentic. These people have trusted me with their most sacred traditions. I can't betray that trust by sensationalizing their struggles or exploiting their pain for entertainment. Sophia, sweetie, let's be realistic here. This isn't a PBS special. This is a major network documentary with a 7-figure budget. We need to deliver content that justifies that investment. And I have to tell you, the executives are getting cold feet about the direction you're going. There's talk of pulling the plug unless we see some major changes. The threat hangs in the air between them, as real and sharp as a blade. What are you asking me to do? Sophia's voice is barely above a whisper, but she already knows the answer will require her to break every promise she's made to KAEL. We want you to focus on your guide. What's his name, KAEL? The viewers love a good romance angle, and he's certainly photogenic enough. We want you to dig deeper into his personal story, his struggles, maybe some family dysfunction or personal demon, and we want you to put yourself in the story more. The audience needs to see you as the bridge between their world and ours. Make it personal, make it dramatic. Marcus pauses, and she can hear him shuffling paper. Oh, and that sacred site you mentioned in your notes, the one with the cave paintings, that needs to be featured prominently. Those visuals will be stunning, and they'll give us the mystical ancient angle that audiences eat up. Sophia's heart stops. The sacred site, the place KAEL showed her in complete trust, the place he's never shown to anyone outside his family, the place that represents the very heart of his people's spiritual life. Marcus, I can't film there. It's too sacred, too private. It would be a violation of everything I've promised them. Sophia, you're being naive. This is television, not a cultural preservation project. If you want this documentary to succeed, if you want your career to survive, you need to give us what we're asking for. Otherwise, we'll find someone who will. The line goes quiet for a moment. Then Marcus speaks again, his voice softer but no less threatening. I like you, Sophia. I think you have real talent. But talent without commercial instincts won't get you very far in this business. Think about your future. Think about what this success could mean for you. After the call ends, Sophia stands in the desert silence, her phone heavy in her hands like a stone. She can hear KAEL's voice in the distance, patiently explaining traditional tracking techniques to the young people who look at him with such respect and admiration. She thinks about the promises she made to him that night at the sacred site, promises that felt so easy to make when she was looking into his eyes, when his hands were in her hair, and his heart was beating against hers. But she also thinks about her career, about the doors that success could open, about the years she's spent fighting to be taken seriously in an industry that's always seen her as decorative rather than substantial. This documentary could change everything for her. It could make her name, establish her as a serious filmmaker, give her the platform she needs to tell important stories for the rest of her career. Surely KAEL would understand that. Surely he would want her to succeed, even if it meant compromising slightly on some of her promises. When she returns to the group, KAEL immediately notices her distress. As the lesson concludes and the young people head back to the community center, he approaches her with the kind of careful attention he gives to wounded animals, gentle but alert to any sign of danger. "What's wrong?" he asks, his hands coming up to frame her face, forcing her to look at him. "You look like you've seen a ghost." His thumb brushes across her cheekbone, and she realizes she's been crying without even knowing it. "It was Marcus, my network president," she says, leaning into his touch, despite the guilt eating at her insides. He's not happy with the direction of the documentary. He wants me to change things, make it more commercial. KAEL's hands drop from her face, and she immediately misses their warmth. What kind of changes? His voice is carefully neutral, but she knows him well enough now to hear the worry underneath. Sophia takes a shaky breath, trying to find the right words, trying to find a way to explain that won't hurt him, but also won't close the door completely on what Marcus is asking for. He wants more personal drama, more focus on individual stories, rather than the community as a whole. He thinks the film needs a stronger narrative arc to hold the audience's attention. KAEL nods slowly, but she can see him processing what she's not saying. And what did you tell him? This is the moment of truth, the first real test of all her promises, and Sophia feels the weight of it like a physical force pressing down on her chest. I told him I'd think about it, she admits, unable to meet his eyes. I told him I needed time to figure out how to balance his concerns with the integrity of the story we're telling. The silence that follows is deafening. When KAEL finally speaks, his voice is so quiet she has to strain to hear it. You promised me you wouldn't let them change our story into something it's not. You promised me you'd protect what we've shared with you, and I meant that promise. Sophia's voice breaks as she looks up at him, seeing the pain in his dark eyes, the way he's already starting to withdraw from her emotionally even though he hasn't moved physically. I'm trying to find a way to keep my promises to you while also not destroying my career. There has to be a middle ground, a way to satisfy both sides. There is no middle ground when it comes to sacred things, KAEL says, and now she can hear anger creeping into his voice, not the explosive anger of someone who loses control, but the deep, cold anger of someone who's been betrayed before and recognizes the sign. Something is either sacred or it's not. You either protect it or you exploit it. There's no compromise position. Sophia feels panic rising in her chest. She's losing him. She can feel it happening, can see him pulling back into the protective shell he wore before he learned to trust her. KAEL, please just listen to me. What if we could find a way to give them what they want while still honoring your culture? What if I focused on your personal story but told it in a way that shows your strength rather than exploiting your pain? What if she hesitates, knowing what she's about to suggest will either save them or destroy them completely? What if we filmed at the sacred site, but did it in a way that honors its spiritual significance rather than sensationalizing it? The change in KAEL's expression is immediate and devastating. It's as if she's physically struck him. The way he staggers back from her, the way all the color drains from his face. You want to film at the petroglyph site, he says, his voice hollow with disbelief. The place I showed you in complete trust, the place that represents everything my people hold sacred. You want to put that on television for millions of strangers to gawk at. Not like that, Sophia says desperately, reaching for him, but he steps back, putting distance between them that feels like an ocean. We could film it respectfully, show it in context, explain its significance. It could be educational. It could help people understand and appreciate Apache culture instead of just consuming it. Listen to yourself, KAEL says, his voice growing stronger and more hurt with each word. You're trying to convince me that exploiting the most sacred place my people have is somehow for our own good. You sound exactly like every other outsider who's ever come here claiming to want to help while really just taking what they need for their own purposes. Sophia feels tears streaming down her face now, hot and fast and desperate. That's not fair. You know I'm not like them. You know what I feel for you is real. What we have together is real. I'm trying to find a solution that works for everyone. What we have together is based on the promises you made to me, KAEL says, and now she can see that he's crying too, though his voice remains steady. You promised me you would never betray my trust. You promised me you would protect what I shared with you. You promised me everything, Sophia. But the moment your career is threatened, the moment keeping your promises becomes inconvenient, you start looking for ways to break them while convincing yourself you're not really breaking them. The truth of his words hits her like a physical blow. She opens her mouth to argue, to explain, to justify her position, but no words come. Because deep down she knows he's right. She is looking for ways to compromise her promises, to find loopholes that will let her keep both her integrity and her career. And the fact that she's doing it out of desperation doesn't make it any less of a betrayal. "I love you," she whispers, the words torn from the deepest part of her heart. "Whatever else happens, whatever mistakes I make, please know that I love you more than I've ever loved anyone in my life." KAEL looks at her for a long moment, and she can see the war playing out in his eyes, the love he feels for her battling with the disappointment, the hope fighting with the recognition that this is how it always ends with people from her world. "I love you too," he says finally, and somehow that makes it worse, not better. But love without trust is destructive, and love without integrity is meaningless. If you film at that sacred site, if you turn your camera on the heart of who we are and broadcast it for entertainment, then everything between us is over. Not because I'll stop loving you, but because you'll have proven that your promises were just words, and I can't build a life with someone whose words don't mean anything. He turns and walks away then, leaving her standing alone in the desert, surrounded by the vastness of the land that's become her home, and the weight of promises that suddenly feel impossible to keep. As his figure grows smaller in the distance, Sophia realizes that she's standing at a crossroads that will define not just her career, but the kind of person she chooses to be. And for the first time since this all began, she's not sure which path she'll choose when the moment of truth arrives. For 3 days, Sophia and KAEL exist in a painful limbo. They share the same cabin, the same bed, but there's a wall between them now that neither knows how to breach. KAEL continues his daily routines, the sunrise prayers, the work with community members, the evening crafts. But he moves through it all, like a man going through the motions of a life that no longer brings him joy. Sophia watches him from the corners of her eyes, seeing how carefully he avoids touching her, how he answers her questions with polite distance, instead of the warm intimacy they'd shared. She hasn't called Marcus back yet, hasn't given him an answer about filming the sacred site. Every time she picks up her phone, she thinks about KAEL's ultimatum, about the devastation in his eyes when she suggested compromising what he holds most sacred. But she also thinks about her career hanging in the balance, about the years of struggle that led her to this opportunity, about the platform she could have to tell important stories if she just makes this one compromise. On the 4th morning, Sophia wakes to find KAEL's side of the bed empty and cold. She checks the time. It's past sunrise, well past the time for his morning prayers. Panic grips her chest as she realizes what this might mean. In the 3 months she's known him, KAEL has never missed his dawn ceremony. It's as essential to him as breathing, as fundamental as his heartbeat. She finds him sitting on the cabin's small porch, still in yesterday's clothes, staring out at the desert with hollow eyes. There's something broken about the way he holds himself, something that makes her heart ache with recognition of her own role in causing this pain. "You didn't do your prayers this morning," she says softly, settling beside him on the wooden steps. She wants to touch him, to take his hand or lean against his shoulder, but the invisible barrier between them feels too solid to breach. KAEL doesn't look at her when he speaks. "I couldn't find the words," he says, his voice rough with exhaustion and heartbreak. "For 30 years I've started every day asking the spirits to guide me, to help me honor my ancestors and protect what they've entrusted to me. But today I couldn't speak to them, knowing that I might be about to fail them completely." Sophia's heart clenches at the self-blame in his voice. "KAEL, you're not failing anyone. Whatever I decide to do, that's on me, not you. Your integrity isn't dependent on my choices, isn't it?" He finally turns to look at her, and she's shocked by the pain etched in every line of his face. "I'm the one who showed you that sacred place. I'm the one who trusted you with something that wasn't mine alone to share. I'm the one who let my feelings for you cloud my judgment about protecting what my people have kept safe for generations." The weight of his guilt hits her like a physical blow. She's been so focused on her own internal struggle that she hadn't fully grasped how much KAEL is suffering, how much he's blaming himself for the position they're in. "That's not fair to yourself," she says, her voice thick with emotion. "You showed me that place because you trusted me, because you believed in the promises I made. If anyone has failed here, it's me." "Have you?" KAEL asks, and there's something desperate in his voice, as if he's hoping she'll tell him something that will make this all make sense again. "Have you failed, Sophia? Because you haven't given Marcus your answer yet. You could still choose to honor what you promised me. You could still choose us over your career." Sophia feels tears burning her eyes as she looks at this man who's become the center of her world, this man whose trust she's already broken just by considering Marcus's demands. "It's not that simple," she whispers, hating herself for the words even as she speaks them. "You don't understand what's at stake for me. This documentary, this success, it's everything I've worked for my entire life. And what am I?" KAEL's voice breaks on the question. "What are we? What is the love you claim to feel for me? Are we worth less than your career ambition?" The question hangs in the air between them, and Sophia realizes this is the moment she's been dreading, the moment when she has to choose not just between competing priorities, but between the person she thought she was and the person she's afraid she might actually be. "I love you," she says, the words feeling both true and inadequate. "I love you more than I've ever loved anyone, but you're asking me to sacrifice everything I've worked for, everything I am professionally for promises I made in a moment of emotion. You're asking me to throw away my entire future. I'm asking you to keep your word," KAEL says simply. "I'm asking you to be the person you claimed to be when you said you'd never betray my trust. I'm asking you to love me enough to choose what's right over what's profitable." Sophia stands abruptly, pacing to the edge of the porch, her hands shaking with the intensity of emotions she can't contain. "And what if I do? What if I tell Marcus no and he pulls the funding, and my career is over? What then, KAEL? Do you think love is enough to build a life on? Do you think I can be happy living in poverty in the desert, watching my dreams die because I was too noble to compromise?" The silence that follows her outburst is deafening. When KAEL finally speaks, his voice is so quiet she has to strain to hear it. "So that's what you really think of this life? That it's poverty? That choosing love over ambition means watching your dreams die?" He stands slowly, and she can see that something fundamental has shifted in him, some last hope extinguished. "I thought you understood that what we have here, the connection to the land, to community, to something larger than ourselves, that this was wealth beyond anything your Hollywood world could offer. But you see it as settling, as give your real dreams for something less." Sophia spins around to face him, seeing the hurt in his eyes and knowing she's caused it. "That's not what I meant. This place, these people, you've changed me in ways I never expected. But I can't just pretend that my career doesn't matter, that the work I want to do in the world doesn't have value." "The work you want to do," KAEL repeats, and there's something bitter in his voice now. "You mean the work where you exploit other people's sacred traditions for your own gain, where you turn someone's spiritual heritage into in turn for mass consumption? That's the valuable work you're talking about?" His words hit their mark with devastating accuracy. Sophia feels something crack inside her chest, some last pretense of nobility crumbling under the weight of truth. "Maybe it is," she says, her voice growing harder as anger rises to protect her from the pain of his judgment. "Maybe that's exactly what I want to do. Maybe I'm tired of pretending that your way of life is more important than my dreams. Maybe I'm tired of being held hostage by promises I made when I was thinking with my heart instead of my head." The change in KAEL's expression is immediate and final. It's as if she's watching him retreat to some unreachable place inside himself, some fortress where her words can't hurt him anymore. "Then you've made your choice," he says, his voice empty of everything: anger, hurt, love, hope. "You've chosen who you really are, and I finally understand who I've been in Nice with. KAEL, wait. Sophia starts, but he's already turning away from her. I'll be gone by tonight, he says, without looking back. You can film wherever you want. Tell whatever story serves your purposes. I won't be here to watch you do it. As he walks away, Sophia feels the world tilt around her. This isn't how this was supposed to go. She was supposed to find a middle ground, a way to keep both her career and her love. She wasn't supposed to lose everything in a moment of angry honesty, wasn't supposed to reveal the ugly truth about her own priorities to the one person whose opinion of her mattered most. But as she watches KAEL disappear into the desert, she realizes that maybe this is who she's always been. Maybe the promises she made were just pretty words, spoken in moments of passion, and maybe her true character was always going to emerge when the stakes got high enough. Maybe KAEL was right to withdraw his trust, right to see that her love wasn't strong enough to overcome her ambition. The phone in her pocket buzzes with another call from Marcus, and this time she answers it without hesitation. "Marcus," she says, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. "I've made my decision. Set up the film crew. I'll give you everything you want. The personal drama, the sacred site, all of it. Just promise me this documentary will be everything we discussed." "Sophia, I knew you'd come around. You're going to be a star after this, sweetheart. A real player in this industry." Marcus's enthusiasm feels like acid in her ears, but she pushes through it. "Just send the crew," she says. "Let's get this done." As she hangs up the phone, Sophia looks out at the vast desert landscape that's been her home for the past 3 months. Tomorrow it will be filled with cameras and lighting equipment, and crew members who see it only as a backdrop for her story. The sacred petroglyph site will be lit and filmed and broadcast to millions of viewers who will never understand what they're really seeing. She has chosen her path, and it's the one that leads away from everything KAEL tried to show her about love, about integrity, about the kind of person she could have been. She has chosen her career, her ambitions, her version of success. She has taken everything KAEL offered her, his trust, his love, his people's sacred heritage, and decided it wasn't enough to satisfy the hunger in her heart for recognition and achievement. In 3 days, the film crew will arrive. In a week, she'll have all the footage she needs to create the documentary that will make her career. In a month, she'll be back in Los Angeles, editing her masterpiece and fielding offers from the industry's biggest players. But as she sits alone on the porch where she and KAEL shared so many quiet evenings, Sophia realizes that she's already lost the only thing that ever really mattered. She promised him everything, but in the end, his heart was the ultimate prize she took. And in taking it, she destroyed both of them. The sun sets over the desert, painting the sky in shades of red and gold that remind her of the first morning she saw KAEL performing his sunrise ceremony. Tomorrow she'll begin the process of turning that sacred ritual into content for mass consumption. Tonight, she mourns the death of the person she thought she could be and the love she sacrificed on the altar of her own ambition. 6 months later, Sophia Chen stands in the ballroom of the Beverly Hills Hotel, holding a golden statuette that represents everything she thought she wanted. The Emmy Award for Outstanding Documentary feels heavier than she expected, cold and sharp-edged against her palm. Around her, industry executives and fellow filmmakers raise champagne glasses in celebration of her triumph. Apache Heart, A Journey into Sacred Ground, has been hailed as a masterpiece of documentary filmmaking, praised for its unflinching look at the intersection of ancient traditions and modern struggles, and its breathtaking cinematography of previously unseen sacred sites. Marcus beams beside her, his arm around her shoulders like a proud father, already discussing her next 3 projects with potential investors. "Sophia's got the golden touch," he tells anyone who will listen. "She knows how to find the human story in any situation, how to make audiences care about people they've never met." The irony of his words cuts through her like a blade, because she knows the human story she really told, the story of her own betrayal, her own choice to value recognition over love. The sacred petroglyph site, filmed with dramatic lighting and sweeping camera movements, became the visual centerpiece of her documentary. Audiences gasped at the ancient artwork, at the mystical beauty of the hidden canyon, at the raw emotion of Sophia's narration as she described the spiritual significance of what they were seeing. What they didn't see was KAEL's face when she returned to the site with her film crew. Didn't hear the way his voice broke when he asked her one last time to reconsider. Didn't witness the moment he walked away from his ancestral home because he couldn't bear to watch it be turned into entertainment. Sophia, a voice cuts through her thoughts, and she turns to see Jennifer Martinez, a reporter from Entertainment Weekly, approaching her, offering a bright smile and a recording device. Congratulations on your Emmy. This documentary has been such a cultural phenomenon. Tell me, what was the most challenging part of making this film? Sophia arranges her face into the media-trained smile she's perfected over the past 6 months. The most challenging part was earning the trust of the Apache community. She says, the practiced words tasting like ash in her mouth. They're very protective of their sacred traditions, understandably so. It took time to build the relationships that allowed me to tell their story authentically. Jennifer nods enthusiastically. And your guide, KAEL YAZZIE, he was such a compelling figure in the documentary. The way you captured his connection to the land, his struggle to preserve his people's heritage while navigating the modern world, it was deeply moving. Are you still in touch with him? The question hit Sophia like a physical blow, though she manages to keep her expression neutral. KAEL was instrumental in helping me understand Apache culture, she says carefully. The film wouldn't have been possible without his guidance and the trust he placed in me. It's not exactly a lie, but it's not the truth either. The truth is that she hasn't seen or spoken to KAEL since the day after her film crew arrived. The truth is that she edited him into the documentary without his consent, using footage she'd shot during their months together, turning his most vulnerable moments into content for her narrative. The truth is that she's become exactly the kind of filmmaker she once claimed to despise, one who takes what she needs from indigenous communities and gives nothing meaningful back. After the interview, Sophia escapes to the hotel's bathroom, locking herself in a stall and trying to breathe through the panic attack that's been building all evening. These attacks have become more frequent over the past few months, usually triggered by reminders of the life she left behind in Arizona. Her therapist calls it guilt, but Sophia prefers to think of it as the price of success. Everyone who achieves something meaningful has to sacrifice something valuable along the way. Her phone buzzes with a text from her assistant. 3 more interview requests for tomorrow. And Netflix wants to meet about your next project. Also, there's someone here who says he knows you from Arizona. Should I have security remove him? Sophia's heart stops. The bathroom suddenly feels too small, the air too thin. There's only one person from Arizona who would seek her out here. Only one person who would have reason to find her at her moment of triumph. With shaking hands, she texts back, "What's his name?" The response comes immediately, KAEL YAZZIE. He says it's important. For a moment, Sophia considers having security escort him away. It would be easier, cleaner, would allow her to maintain the narrative she's built around her success. But something deeper than self-preservation drives her to text back, "Tell him I'll meet him in the lobby in 10 minutes. She spends those 10 minutes trying to prepare herself for seeing him again, trying to armor herself against whatever pain or anger he might bring. But when she walks into the lobby and sees him standing by the windows, silhouetted against the Los Angeles skyline, all her preparations crumble. He looks thinner than she remembers, older somehow, though it's only been 6 months. He's wearing a simple black suit that looks uncomfortable on his frame, and his long hair is pulled back in a way that seems more about practicality than tradition. When he turns to face her, the impact of his dark eyes nearly brings her to her knees. There's no anger there, no accusation, just a profound sadness that makes her want to run back to the ballroom and hide among her industry. Congratulations. KAEL, she breathes, his name escaping her lips like a prayer or a confession. I didn't expect. Why are you here? He studies her for a long moment, taking in her designer gown, her perfectly styled hair, the Emmy statuette she's still clutching in her hand. I came to congratulate you, he says, his voice carefully neutral. I saw the documentary. I saw what you did with the footage of my people, with the sacred site. I saw how you turned our story into your triumph. Sophia feels heat rise in her cheeks, shame and defensiveness warring in her chest. I told their story respectfully, she says, though even she can hear how hollow the words sound. I honored the Apache culture and traditions. You honored what you needed to honor to serve your narrative. KAEL corrects, stepping close. Now she can see the details that the months have etched in his face. New lines around his eyes, a tightness in his jaw that speaks of pain carried too long. You took what was sacred and made it accessible to millions of people who will never understand what they saw. You turned my ancestors' legacy into entertainment. I brought awareness to Apache culture, Sophia protests, but her voice lacks conviction. I gave your people a platform, a voice in the national conversation. You gave yourself a platform, KAEL says, and now she can hear the controlled anger beneath his calm exterior. You used our pain, our struggles, our sacred places to build your career. The voices you amplified were the ones that served your story, not the ones that told the truth. Sophia looks around the lobby, aware that other Emmy attendees are starting to notice their conversation, that her moment of triumph is about to become a public confrontation. KAEL, please. Not here. If you want to talk, we can go somewhere private. No, he says firmly. I've said what I came to say. I wanted to see if you felt any guilt about what you'd done, if there was any part of the woman I fell in love with still left in you. But looking at you now, seeing how comfortable you are with your success, I have my answer. He starts to turn away, and something desperate in Sophia's chest makes her reach out and grab his arm. Wait. Please, you don't understand the impossible position I was in. I loved you, I did, but I couldn't sacrifice everything I'd worked for. I couldn't throw away my entire future. KAEL stops and looks down at where her hand grips his arm, then back up to her face. And what about my future? What about the future of the sacred places you exposed? What about the promises you made? He gently removes her hand from his arm. The gesture somehow more final than any harsh words could be. You didn't just choose your career over our love, Sophia. You chose to become someone who breaks sacred trusts for personal gain. You chose to become exactly the kind of person who causes the harm you claimed you wanted to prevent. The truth of his words hits her like a physical blow. She opens her mouth to argue, to explain, to somehow justify what she's done. But no words come, because deep down, she knows he's right. She's become the exploiter she once claimed to despise, the outsider who takes what she needs from indigenous communities and gives nothing meaningful back. I loved you, KAEL continues, his voice soft but cutting. I loved you enough to show you the most sacred things my people possess. I trusted you with the heart of who we are, and you took that trust, that love, and you turned it into profit. You promised me everything, but what you really took was everything. My trust, my people's heritage, my ability to believe that someone from your world could ever truly understand what love means in mine. Sophia feels tears starting to fall, but KAEL doesn't seem to notice or care. I came here tonight because I needed to see you accept your award, needed to witness the moment when you celebrated what you bought with our broken promises. I needed to understand if you felt any regret, any recognition of what you'd destroyed. But seeing you now, I realize you've gotten exactly what you wanted. You sacrificed our love for your career, and your career has rewarded you handsomely. He reaches into his jacket and pulls out something that makes Sophia's breath catch in her throat. The traditional Apache bracelet he'd made for her during their time together, woven with symbols that told the story of their love. She'd left it behind when she returned to Los Angeles, unable to bear the weight of what it represented. You left this, he says, holding it out to her. I thought you might want it back now that you've achieved everything you wanted. A souvenir of the love you traded for success. Sophia stares at the bracelet, remembering the night he gave it to her, the way his hands had trembled slightly as he explained the meaning of each symbol, the way she'd felt like the luckiest woman in the world to be loved by someone so deeply connected to something eternal. KAEL, she starts, but he's already placing the bracelet on the table beside them. Goodbye, Sophia, he says, his voice carrying a finality that makes her chest ache with loss. I hope your success brings you the happiness you thought it would. I hope when you're lying awake at night in your expensive apartment, looking at your awards and accolades, you feel that it was all worth what you sacrificed to get it. As he walks away, moving through the crowd of celebrating industry professionals like a ghost from another world, Sophia realizes that she's gotten everything she thought she wanted and lost everything that actually mattered. The Emmy in her hands feels heavier now, like it's made of the weight of broken promises and betrayed trust rather than gold and recognition. She picks up the bracelet with shaking hands, and for the first time in months, she allows herself to remember what it felt like to be loved by someone who saw her as more than her ambitions, someone who believed she could be better than her worst impulses. But that woman is gone now, sacrificed on the altar of success, and there's no amount of career achievement that can bring her back. The party continues around her, but Sophia stands alone in the crowd, holding the remnants of a love she destroyed and an award that suddenly feels like the consolation prize for the most important failure of her life. 3 weeks after the Emmy ceremony, Sophia sits in her therapist's office, the Apache bracelet clutched in her hands like a lifeline to a person she used to be. Sarah Collins has been patient with her for months, listening to her rationalize her choices, watching her build elaborate justifications for her betrayal of KAEL and his people. But today something has shifted. Today Sophia can't seem to stop the truth from pouring out of her. I keep having the same dream, Sophia says, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm back at the sacred site, but instead of petroglyphs on the walls, there are television screens showing my documentary. KAEL is there, but he's transparent, like a ghost, and he's trying to tell me something, but I can't hear him over the sound of applause from an invisible audience. When I try to reach for him, my hands go right through him, and I realize he was never really there at all, that I imagined everything we had together. Dr. Collins leans forward, her expression gentle but probing. What do you think that dream is telling you? Sophia laughs, but there's no humor in it, only the bitter edge of recognition that I turned the most real thing in my life into something fake, that I took something sacred and made it into entertainment, that I loved a man so much I was willing to destroy him, to keep my career. She looks down at the bracelet, tracing the intricate patterns with her finger. Do you know what this represents? Each symbol tells part of the story of our love. This one here means trust, given freely. This one means hearts, joined in sacred bond. This one, her voice breaks, this one means promises kept until the end of time. And how does it feel to hold that now? Dr. Collins asks quietly. Like holding evidence of my own crime, Sophia admits. Like carrying around proof that I'm capable of destroying the most beautiful thing in my life for the sake of applause from strangers. She sets the bracelet on the coffee table between them, as if it's too heavy to hold any longer. I used to think I was a good person who made a difficult choice. Now I think I'm just a person who chose to be terrible when it served my purposes. Collins is quiet for a moment, allowing the weight of Sophia's admission to settle between them. Tell me about the day you decided to film at the sacred site. Walk me through what you were thinking, what you were feeling. Sophia closes her eyes, transported back to that moment of choice that changed everything. I was terrified, she says. Terrified that if I said no to Marcus, my career would be over before it really began. Terrified that I'd spent years fighting to be taken seriously, only to throw it all away for a man I'd known for 3 months. I told myself I was being practical, realistic. I told myself that KAEL would understand eventually, that he'd see I was doing this for both of us, that success would give me the platform to really help his people. Do you believe that now? Dr. Collins asks. No, Sophia says immediately. I think I was lying to myself because the truth was too ugly to face. The truth was that I valued my career more than his trust. I valued recognition from my industry more than I valued being the kind of person who keeps sacred promises. I valued being seen as successful more than I valued actually being good. The admission hangs in the air between them, and Sophia feels something crack open in her chest, not the sharp pain she's been carrying for months, but something deeper and more fundamental. It's the sound of her last defenses crumbling, the final collapse of the story she's been telling herself about who she is and what she did. I've been getting letters, she continues, her voice gaining strength as she speaks the truth she's been avoiding. From Apache community members who saw the documentary, some of them are angry, calling me another white savior who exploited their culture for profit. But the worst ones are the ones who are disappointed, the ones who say they trusted me because KAEL trusted me, and now they feel betrayed not just by me, but by their own judgment and believing I was different. She pulls out her phone and scrolls to an email she's read dozens of times. This one is from Maria Yazzie, KAEL's cousin. She says, "We welcomed you into our homes because we saw how much KAEL loved you, how much he believed in your promises. We shared our stories with you because he told us you would protect them. Now our sacred places are on television screens in sports bars and hotel lobbies. Our spiritual practices are being discussed by people who will never understand their meaning. You took our trust and turned it into profit, and the worst part is that you convinced someone we love to help you do it." Dr. Collins nods slowly. "How does it feel to read that?" "Like drowning," Sophia says simply. "Like being crushed under the weight of what I've done to people who never deserved it. Like understanding that I didn't just betray KAEL. I betrayed an entire community that welcomed me because he vouched for me. I turned his love for me into a weapon against his own people." The session continues for another 30 minutes, but Sophia barely hears Dr. Collins' gentle probing questions. Her mind is elsewhere, transported back to Arizona, to mornings spent watching KAEL perform his sunrise ceremonies, to evenings spent learning traditional crafts, to the night he showed her the petroglyphs, and she promised him everything. She remembers the weight of that promise, how sacred it felt in the moment, how certain she was that she meant every word. After the appointment, Sophia drives aimlessly through Los Angeles, the city that once represented all her dreams, now feeling like a prison of her own making. Her phone buzzes constantly with congratulatory messages about a new project offer, a magazine cover story, an invitation to speak at a film festival about authentic storytelling and documentary filmmaking. Each notification feels like another layer of irony, another reminder of how thoroughly she's been rewarded for behavior that makes her sick to contemplate. She finds herself parked outside a small Native American cultural center in East LA, staring at a flyer in the window advertising a talk by a Lakota filmmaker about reclaiming indigenous narratives. The irony isn't lost on her. She's become exactly the kind of filmmaker this talk is probably warning against. On impulse, she gets out of her car and walks inside. The center is small and modest, filled with authentic artwork and the kind of genuine cultural artifacts that her documentary turned into visual spectacle. A young Apache woman behind the desk looks up as she enters, and Sophia sees the moment of recognition flash across her face. "You're Sophia Chen," the woman says, and there's no warmth in her voice. "The filmmaker who made Apache Heart." "Yes," Sophia says, bracing herself for whatever justifiable anger is about to come her way. But instead of anger, the woman, her name tag reads Yelena, just looks sad. "I'm from the same community you filmed," she says. "I know KAEL. I know what happened between you two, and I know what your documentary did to our sacred places." Sophia feels her chest tighten with shame. "I'm sorry," she says, the words feeling inadequate and pathetic. "I know that doesn't mean anything, but I'm sorry for what I did." Elena studies her for a long moment. "Are you?" Are you really sorry? Or are you just feeling guilty because you got what you wanted and it doesn't feel as good as you thought it would? The question hits Sophia like a slap, brutal in its accuracy. Both, she admits. I'm sorry because I hurt people who trusted me, but you're right, I'm also just empty. I got everything I thought I wanted, and it feels like nothing. Worse than nothing. KAEL hasn't been the same since you left, Elena says, and each word lands like a physical blow. He blames himself for trusting you, for showing you our sacred places. He's stopped doing his sunrise ceremonies. He's stopped participating in community events. It's like watching someone die slowly from the inside out. Sophia feels tears starting to fall, but she doesn't try to stop them. Is there anything I can do? Any way to make this right? Elena shakes her head slowly. Some things can't be unmade. Some trusts, once broken, can't be repaired. Some sacred things, once exploited, can't be made sacred again. Your documentary has been seen by millions of people. Those images of our sacred sites are out there forever now, being used in ways we can't control. The finality in Elena's voice makes Sophia's legs feel weak. She grabs the edge of the desk to steady herself. So there's nothing? No way to atone, no way to fix what I've broken. There's always a way to be better, moving forward, Elena says, her voice softening slightly. But you can't undo what you've done. You can't give KAEL back his ability to trust, can't give our community back the privacy of our sacred places, can't give yourself back the person you were before you chose your career over your integrity. Sophia nods, understanding with crystal clarity what Elena is telling her. There are some mistakes that can't be fixed, some choices that fundamentally change who you are, some prices that once paid can never be refunded. She made her choice, and now she has to live with the person that choice made her. He loved you, you know, Elena continues, really loved you. The way he talked about you, the way his whole face would light up when someone mentioned your name. I'd never seen him like that with anyone. He would have given up everything for you. His home, his traditions, his community. If you'd asked him to come to Los Angeles and build a life with you, he would have done it. But you never asked. You just took what you needed and left. The words hit Sophia like a series of physical blows, each one revealing another layer of what she'd destroyed. I didn't know, she whispers. I didn't realize he would have. Of course you didn't know, Elena says, and now there is anger in her voice. Because you never asked. You never considered that there might be options other than betraying him or sacrificing your career. You never thought to include him in the decision, to trust him with the truth about what you were facing. You just made the choice that served you best and convinced yourself it was the only choice possible. Sophia stands there absorbing the full weight of Elena's words, understanding finally and completely what she's done. She didn't just choose her career over love. She chose to exclude KAEL from the most important decision of their relationship, chose to betray him rather than trust him with her struggles, chose to be the kind of person who takes what she needs and justifies it later. As she drives home through the Los Angeles traffic, Sophia realizes that Elena was right. Some things can't be undone. She can't give KAEL back his trust, can't return the sacred images to privacy, can't restore her own integrity. But she can finally stop lying to herself about what she did and why she did it. That night, she sits in her expensive apartment, surrounded by the awards and accolades that represent her professional success, holding the Apache bracelet that represents everything she destroyed to get them. For the first time since leaving Arizona, she allows herself to feel the full weight of what she's lost. Not just KAEL's love, but her own sense of who she thought she was. The price of everything, she realizes, was everything that actually mattered, and now she has to find a way to live with the person that transaction made her. 1 year after the Emmy ceremony, Sophia stands at the edge of the same sacred canyon where KAEL first showed her the ancient petroglyphs, where she first promised him everything. The irony isn't lost on her that she's returned to the scene of her greatest betrayal on the anniversary of her greatest professional triumph. She's not here to film. Her camera equipment sits locked in her rental car, untouched. She's not here for her career. She's here because she finally understands what she needs to do. The past year has been a masterclass in the emptiness of hollow success. Her documentary won every major award, opened every door she'd ever dreamed of walking through. Netflix offered her a multi-million-dollar deal. Studios competed to finance her next project. Film festivals invited her as a keynote speaker. She became the filmmaker she'd always wanted to be, respected, successful, influential. But success built on betrayal has a way of poisoning everything it touches. Every accolade felt like evidence of her guilt. Every new opportunity reminded her of what she'd sacrificed to get there. The panic attacks became daily occurrences. The therapy sessions became confessionals where she recited her sins without hope of absolution. The sleeping pills stopped working. The awards gathered dust on shelves that felt more like monuments to her shame than celebrations of her achievement. 3 months ago, she made the decision that brought her here today. She turned down the Netflix deal, cancelled the studio projects, stopped taking meetings. She liquidated her assets, sold her apartment, donated her awards to film schools with letters explaining why she no longer deserved them. She kept only one thing from her year of success, the Apache bracelet that KAEL had returned to her, the one reminder of what real love and trust looked like before she destroyed them. Now she sits in the same spot where she and KAEL made love that first night, where she promised him forever, with such certainty, such naive belief that she could be the kind of person worthy of such promises. The canyon is exactly as it was, the petroglyphs unchanged by their exposure to millions of viewers, the rocks indifferent to the human drama that played out among them. Only she has changed, only she carries the weight of what happened here. She pulls out her phone and dials a number she's memorized, but never called. It rings 3 times before a familiar voice answers. Elena? Sophia's voice cracks on the name. It's Sophia Chen. I need to ask you something. There's a long pause on the other end of the line. Sophia, I wondered if I'd ever hear from you again. Is he? Sophia takes a shaky breath. Is KAEL still alive? The question that's been haunting her for months, finally spoken aloud, the fear that her betrayal might have broken him completely, that her choice might have cost him more than just his ability to trust. He's alive, Elena says, and Sophia feels a sob of relief escape her chest. But he's not who he was before. He moved away from the community 6 months ago. No one knows where he went. He said he needed to find a place where he could remember who he was before he met you. The words hit Sophia like physical blow. Even alive, even safe. KAEL has been so damaged by her betrayal that he had to exile himself from everything he loved to try to heal. She's not just broken his heart. She's driven him from his ancestral home, separated him from his community, forced him to become a stranger to himself. Elena, Sophia says, her voice thick with tears, I need to tell you something. I'm giving it all back. Giving what back? Everything. The money I made from the documentary, all of it. I've set up a fund for cultural preservations, specifically for the communities I exploited. The money will go toward legal protections for sacred sites, toward supporting indigenous filmmakers who want to tell their own stories. I know it doesn't undo what I did, but it's everything I have. Elena is quiet for a long moment. That's a lot of money, Sophia. Your whole career. My career was built on theft, Sophia says simply. I stole KAEL's trust, stole your community's sacred heritage, stole images and stories that were never mine to take. I can't give back what I took, but I can make sure I don't profit from it anymore. And what will you do? What's left for you after this? Sophia looks around the canyon, at the ancient artwork that witnessed her promises and her betrayal, and feels a strange sense of peace settling over her. I don't know, she admits. Maybe nothing. Maybe that's what I deserve. Maybe some mistakes are so big that they cost you everything, and you just have to accept that. After the call ends, Sophia sits in the silence of the canyon, feeling the weight of finality settling around her like a shroud. She's given up everything she thought she wanted, everything she destroyed KAEL to get, and she feels empty, not relieved, not redeemed, just hollow in a way that feels permanent. As the sun begins to set, painting the canyon walls in shades of red and gold that remind her painfully of KAEL's sunrise ceremonies, Sophia hears footsteps on the stone path behind her. She turns, expecting to see a park ranger or another tourist, and her heart stops completely. KAEL stands at the edge of the canyon, silhouetted against the dying light. He looks older, thinner, worn down by the year that's passed between them. His hair is shorter now, his clothes more modern, less connected to the traditional Apache style he once wore with such pride. He looks like a man who's lost himself and is still searching for the way back. "Elena called me," he says, his voice carrying across the canyon like an echo from their past. "She told me what you're doing, giving up everything here, can't speak, can't breathe, can't process that he's here, that after everything she's done, he's come to this place where it all began and ended. She can only stare at him, drinking in the sight of him alive and whole, even if he's changed beyond recognition." "Why?" he asks, moving closer, but still keeping distance between them. "Why give it all up now? You got everything you wanted. You won. Because I lost everything that mattered." Sophia whispers, her voice barely audible above the desert wind. "Because I realized that what I thought was winning was actually the most complete failure of my life. Because I can't live with what I became to get things I don't even want anymore." KAEL sits down across from her, the same position they were in the night she first promised him everything, but the energy between them now is completely different. Where once there was love and trust and hope, now there's only the ghost of what they destroyed. "Do you know what this place means to my people?" he asks, looking around at the petroglyphs that her cameras once invaded. "These images aren't just art or history, they're our connection to the ancestors, our roadmap for how to live with honor. Each symbol carries the wisdom of generations, the accumulated knowledge of how to be truly human." Sophia nods, remembering his explanations from that first night, remembering how sacred it all felt before she turned it into contempt. "There's one symbol you never asked about." KAEL continues, pointing to a small, intricate design near the back of the canyon. "That one represents the price of broken trust. It shows a heart being torn in half, with pieces scattered to the wind. The story says that when someone breaks a sacred trust, they don't just lose what they betrayed, they lose pieces of their own soul that can never be recovered." Sophia follows his gaze to the symbol, seeing it clearly for the first time despite having filmed it multiple times. It's beautiful and terrible, a perfect representation of what she's been feeling for the past year. "I used to think that was just a metaphor," KAEL says, his voice heavy with pain. "But this year I've learned it's literally true. When you broke your promises to me, when you chose your career over sacred trust, you didn't just take my ability to believe in love, you took pieces of yourself that you'll never get back. That's why giving up the many won't fix anything. That's why there's no redemption for what we did to each other." "What we did?" Sophia looks at him sharply. "KAEL, you didn't do anything wrong. I'm the one who betrayed everything, who chose ambition over love. You're the victim here." KAEL shakes his head slowly. "I'm the one who showed you this place. I'm one who trusted you with something that wasn't mine alone to share. I'm the one who let my love for you override my responsibility to protect what my ancestors entrusted to me. I broke trust too, Sophia. With my people, with my ancestors, with myself. We're both guilty." The admission hangs between them like a bridge neither knows how to cross. Sophia realizes that KAEL's pain isn't just about her betrayal, it's about his own sense of failure, his own guilt over trusting her with sacred things. "I loved you," she says, the words torn from the deepest part of her heart. "I know that doesn't matter now. I know love without integrity is meaningless. but I need you to know that what I felt for you was real. It was the most real thing in my life, even though I destroyed it. I know, KAEL says softly, and I loved you too. Loved you enough to show you the heart of who my people are. Loved you enough to believe your promises meant something. Loved you enough to think you could choose our future over your past. He looks directly at her for the first time since arriving, and she sees tears streaming down his face. But love isn't enough when it's not supported by integrity. Trust isn't enough when it's not protected by honor. Promises aren't enough when they're broken the moment they become inconvenient. They sit in silence as the sun disappears behind the canyon walls, darkness settling over the place where their love was born and died. Sophia realizes this is goodbye, not the angry, painful separation of a year ago, but the final, complete end of what they once meant to each other. I gave you everything, KAEL says finally, his voice barely audible in the gathering darkness. My trust, my love, my people's sacred heritage. I gave you pieces of my soul I'd never shared with anyone. And you took it all, not just what I offered, but what you needed for your career. My heart was the ultimate prize you took, and taking it destroyed us both. Sophia feels the truth of his words settle into her bones like a physical weight. She promised him everything, but in the end, his heart was what she took. Not gently, not with love, but violently, selfishly, completely. She took his ability to trust, his connection to his home, his sense of himself as someone worthy of love. She took everything that made him who he was and used it to build a career that brought her no real happiness. I'm sorry, she whispers, knowing the words are inadequate, but needing to say them anyway. I'm so sorry for what I took from you, for what I cost you, for the person I became. I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough to keep my promises. I'm sorry I chose success over love. I'm sorry I broke something sacred. KAEL nods, accepting her apology without forgiveness, understanding it without absolution. I'm sorry too, he says. Sorry I trusted you with things that weren't mine to share. Sorry I believed in promises that were too beautiful to be real. Sorry I loved you enough to show you how to destroy me. As he stands to leave, Sophia realizes this is the last time she'll ever see him. The final closing of a chapter that defined and ruined both their lives. KAEL, she calls out, and he turns back one last time. Will you ever be able to forgive me? He looks at her with infinite sadness, but no anger, no hatred, just the profound grief of someone who's lost something irreplaceable. Forgiveness isn't the right word, he says. What happened between us is beyond forgiveness, beyond redemption. It just is. We loved each other, we destroyed each other, and now we have to find ways to live with what's left. Some stories don't have happy endings, Sophia. Some promises, once broken, can never be made whole again. As his footsteps fade into the distance, Sophia sits alone in the sacred canyon, surrounded by the ancient wisdom of generations, holding the bracelet that represents promises she never should have made to a man whose heart she never should have taken. She understands now that this is her ending, not death, not dramatic redemption, but the quiet, terrible understanding that some choices echo forever, that some prices can never be repaid, that some love is too pure to survive the contamination of ambition. She promised him everything, but what she really did was take everything, his trust, his love, his peace, his home, his heart. And in taking his heart, she lost her own soul, scattered to the desert wind like the pieces of broken trust depicted in the ancient petroglyphs that will outlive them both. The ultimate prize was love, and she destroyed it to win things that turned to ash in her hand. Now she sits with the weight of that victory, understanding finally and completely that she got exactly what she asked for, everything she thought she wanted, and nothing that actually mattered. In the distance, an owl calls across the desert, a sound as old as the stones around her, as eternal as the consequences of the choices that define us. Sophia closes her eyes and listens, knowing that this sound will haunt her for the rest of her life. a reminder of the love she sacrificed and the trust she betrayed in a sacred place that will remember their story long after they're both gone. She promised him everything, but his heart was the ultimate prize she took, and in taking it, she lost everything that ever could have made her whole.